Welcome to Ginny's, where East meets West, and a slice of Eastern philosophy becomes a part of Western thinking. I'm your host, Ginny Gong. China comprises 1/5 of the world's total population of children. Every year for a number of years, about 1 million children were abandoned across China as a result of Chinese policies addressing overpopulation. Hundreds of thousands were adopted domestically, while many were sent abroad. Between 1999 and 2016, over 250,000 abandoned Chinese children were adopted here in the United States from Chinese orphanages. My guests today were one of those families who adopted from China during that time frame. She is a former human resources vice president for Merck & Company, and he is the founder and CEO of Sheng Consulting. She is second-generation Chinese American, and he is Jewish American. Together with their 2 adopted daughters from China, they are truly representative of the Jewish Chinese American family. Please join me in welcoming Sandra Gong, Victor Sloan, and one of their 2 daughters, An Sloan. Welcome, Sandra, Victor, and An. And in the interest of disclosure, I'm going to say that we're related, right?
That's
and
right.
An, I'm your aunt, okay? Yeah. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Let's learn a little bit more about each of you. Now, Sandra, you were born in this country. What else about you?
I was the first to go away to college. My mother and father who came from China in the 1920s, worked very hard to provide for their children. I was one of 4 and one that was the first one to go away to college.
Wow.
And then eventually made my way into human resources, working for a pharmaceutical company.
I know, and now you're busier than ever. Victor, what about you? You were raised in Jewish traditions.
Yeah, so my parents were both scientists. My father is a chemist, and my mother was the first woman to get a degree from Jefferson Medical College when she got her master's there in 1950. They were the first generation. Their parents came from Eastern Europe.
Okay, and you were born here.
I was born here. My parents were born here as well.
Okay. An, where are you in your education?
I'm currently a junior in high school.
Okay,
Yeah.
and how old were you when you came to this country?
I was about 14 months when
Remember
I was adopted.
anything?
No.
Okay, so if I may ask your parents, what made you decide to adopt children? Sandra?
We were both working very hard at our careers, and I was approaching 40, or was going to be probably over 40.
Over the hill.
Over the hill, yes. And Victor and I talked about it, and I didn't have any great desire to be pregnant, but we wanted children. And I do remember Victor saying, well, you're not getting any younger.
He's so flattering, isn't he? Oh my goodness. And Victor, do you agree with this perspective?
Well, we talked a lot about wanting to be parents, and I remember asking Sandra, I said there's a lot of ways to become parents. Mm-hmm. And we decided that for lots of reasons that we wanted to adopt. And I remember when the social worker came to visit with us, she said, look, don't do this because you want to save a kid's life. If you want to do that, send a donation. Do this because you want to be a parent.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, you've always been very open-minded as long as I've known both of you. Why did you decide to choose China as the place to adopt? Victor?
Well, again, I think when I remember
I mean, you
back,
could adopt from anywhere, right, from this country.
Well, part of it was that Sandra is Chinese American, and I certainly think I embraced her culture. And she has embraced mine, and also, I think we wanted a daughter. I wanted a daughter, and there were also these stories that you hear about domestic adoptions going sour, where the birth mother would change her mind, and I just couldn't imagine that after bringing a child into our home.
Yeah, I could imagine that must be quite a factor. Right.
It was also that there were all these abandoned girls in China.
Yeah.
And we wanted to have children and love children, and it seemed the right way to go.
So were you aware at the time when you were considering adopting that there were these large numbers of, girls in orphanages in China?
Yes, and there were lots of news reports about how these, orphanages really couldn't take care of all of the children that were left to be adopted.
How many orphanages are there in China?
Hundreds.
Yeah.
Although,
I think there's like 75 major ones or something.
right, but there are hundreds of them. Some are smaller. The good news is that today, there are many fewer children in these orphanages, under 100,000.
Because many of them have been adopted.
And China they no longer have the one-child policy.
Yeah, let's talk about that policy because that's what, brought this all about. China decided to do something about the overpopulation crisis. So what did they put in place, Victor, you were just mentioning?
They put a policy in that with very limited exceptions, each family could only have one child.
Right.
And of course, in the Chinese culture, it's very important to have a son.
Oh, I understand that.
and my understanding is that the tradition is that the eldest son cares for the parents when they're
Exactly.
too old to care for themselves.
Well, you know why that is so? Because when you, the daughter, get married, you then care for your husband's parents because you're
Right.
part of the other family.
Right.
You see, that's sort of the rationale for that. Yeah. Well, so they have a lot of these female children in orphanages. Huge percent are girls, right?
When we went, it was 90%.
90% are girls. Okay. What was the adoption process like? Was it difficult to navigate? Did they have requirements as to who could adopt children?
Well, there was lots of paperwork to complete, both for the United States as well as for China. Requirements: you had to be under a certain age. You could be single, but you also
Although
had to
more
be
difficult, though, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But you also had to be able to afford to adopt the child, and they wanted to be sure that you could actually take care of the child once you adopted the child.
And, do you believe that being, that you're Chinese, that was an advantage or a disadvantage in terms of the adoption process?
It actually was an advantage for the adoption process for Onlin. It was very quick. If you had a relative who was born in China or a connection to China, they would sort of put you in the front of the line. You could cut the line and be, at the top of the list.
Wow.
But we didn't know that for our first adoption.
Your first one.
And so the process took about 18 months. For our second daughter, it took about maybe 12 months.
Okay. And how long? Okay, so you talk about 12 months and
Right.
18 months. So is there a range in how much, an adoption costs?
Round numbers, it's at the time we did it, which was now 15 years ago, $20,000 to $25,000 for everything: travel, the fees to the adoption agency, the fees to the Chinese government, fees to the orphanage, immigration fees, travel.
But if you adopted a child in this country, there would still be fees associated with that, right?
It's a rounding error when you compare it to the cost of a college education.
That makes sense, right? So, Unlin, you actually know what you're worth, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Priceless.
You're
good
priceless. So, what were some of the challenges in this process? Like for 18 months, was there a lot of delay, or was it just a bureaucracy?
It was really just getting paperwork, getting an original marriage certificate, getting an original birth certificate. So it just took time for the bureaucracy to move along. For me, the obstacle was more the thinking about an adoption in the States when you got back. When women give birth, people expect, oh, you'll take a couple of weeks off before giving birth, you'll stay home after the birth, you're a new mother, give them time before they come back to work. I felt that when we were going through the adoption process, It was, you were being treated as if you were going off to the supermarket. So come back with your child and now get back to work.
And then back to work.
That was really the thinking at the time.
Uh-huh. And has that changed, do you know? Do you think?
I think it has. I think it has. It's much better now. Companies have adoption benefits. When we were going through the process, there really wasn't very much at all. You know, again, a woman could go out on maternity leave, but when you adopt a child, there was no similar adoption leave when you wanted to stay home.
Wow. So I'm not going to ask you about the benefits of, because obviously we could go on and on. You know, you have 2 daughters that you've adopted. Mei Lin took longer because that was your first adoption. What made you decide to go through a second one?
I think we got back with Mei Lin, and we were, as Sandra said, older parents, and we were very happy. And then a couple of years into it, we looked at each other and kind of said, you know what? We're not done. And I think we were better at it the second time. We knew how to navigate the process better.
That is not new, you know. It has nothing to do with adoptions. You're just better at it.
But the bureaucracy was easier because we knew what to do and what to expect. But it's still a lot of. I remember Sandra made a comment once when we were going through this that if biological parents had to go through this, we'd have fewer problems in our society because we had a background check, we had a social work visit, we had references, health checks, financial checks, because as Sandra said, the Chinese government wants to make sure these kids are going to a good home.
And that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. It's not a complaint.
Did you have any challenges with our government here in the United States in terms of adopting from abroad?
No, I think when we were going through the process, it was fairly well accepted. And so again, it was really just putting what we call a dossier together and writing checks to various city agencies to get all your licenses and fingerprinting done.
And so they have birth certificates that come from China.
We then readopted both young women now in the U.S., so they have New Jersey birth certificates.
Oh, okay. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back, okay? It's time for us to take a brief break. We'll continue our discussion about families with children adopted from China. Stay tuned.
Can you consent with me? Imagine what you'd see if every child had a book to read.
So the mission is for us to get a book to each and every child.
So let's join hands, book people unite, unearth hidden passion. Come on, we'll have a good time. One book can be the first thing that helps to change a life.
Book people unite.
Read to a child today and spark a lifetime of ambition.
Up, college is hard. Down, those books are heavy.
My sport is football, but my passion is education.
Right up here.
So every year I take promising high schoolers on a college tour
Lights there, darks there.
to show them that higher education means a brighter future. My name is Nnamdi Asamoah. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
You can be a reader, tutor, or mentor too. Take the pledge at liveunited.org/volunteer.
Do you wear this?
Nice. No. Oops. Yeah, sure. Let's go.
Moms everywhere are finding ways to keep kids active and healthy.
Works every time.
Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov.
Welcome back to Ginny's, where East meets West, and to our discussion with the Gong Sloan family about adopting children from China. So let's start with talking about the day you went to China to pick up An Lin, since An Lin is here. And just for the sake of, since we're talking about your other sister, your older sister is Mei Lin, right?
Yeah.
And she was, how much older is she than you?
She's 4 years older.
Oh, 4
Yeah.
years, okay. So let's talk about when you went to China to pick up An Lin. Okay, what was that like?
Well, Malin was with us, so she was 5.5.
Okay.
And it's a long
And
trip.
this is in what part of China that you went to?
This is in Guangdong province.
Which is?
Southeast.
Right, the
That's where
southeastern part of China.
Sandra's family is from.
And my family. I'm from that whole area as well. That's the peasant, we were the farmers, and
So
that's the area.
We got off the bus at the airport. We spent a few days in Beijing sightseeing, and then we flew to Guangzhou, which is a city now of 14 million people. And we got off the plane and we got onto the bus, and the guide said, "Okay, we're going to get your children. No stopping at the hotel, no bite to eat. We're going to get your children."
And how far was that ride?
45 minutes.
Oh, okay, so it's not that far out of the big city.
It's in the big city.
Oh, the orphanage is in the city.
We didn't go to the orphanage. We went to the China Center for Adoption Affairs in Guangzhou.
Oh, okay.
Because Onlin's orphanage, as we later discovered, is pretty isolated.
Okay.
So they brought the children to us. And we did make a stop at McDonald's to feed everybody. But I remember we go into the room, and they came in with all the babies, and we're all trying to figure from these little pictures which one is ours. And they put Onlin in our arms. And I remember she was so light. She only weighed 16 pounds. And she was very quiet and very serious. But it was and still is an amazingly emotional moment.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you set eyes on, this little girl that's going to be your daughter, it's pretty amazing,
It is a very emotional situation because the caregivers are handing the child over to you, but this caregiver has taken care of this baby for the last several months, and so it's, in some ways, it's heart-wrenching because they have to say goodbye while you are welcoming this child into your family.
Did you see this reaction from the caregiver for Onlin?
Absolutely.
Now, that is different from your first experience. Tell us about picking up Maylin.
Maylin, we had a little bit more time when we arrived. They told us that in a couple of days we'd be going to the adoption agency to, no, I'm sorry. Actually, they told us that we would go to the orphanage to get Maylin.
Oh, so you actually went to the orphanage?
No, but they changed their minds.
Oh.
They said, you know what, we're canceling the overnight train trip, and you'll just meet your daughter in the hotel lobby. And that's how we got Maylin. The elevator doors opened, the caretakers came out and handed Maylin to us.
Wow. So for these trips, you never saw the orphanage that they were placed in?
That's correct.
Okay. But your family is one of the few families I know that after you've adopted your children, you've actually gone back and visited the orphanages with the girls and done a lot of amazing things. So let's talk a little bit about those trips that you've made. Victor, I know you've gone back a few times.
I've been back several times for business, but in 2014, we went as a family. And you have to get permission. You can't just go to the orphanage. You have to get permission from the government. But we went to the orphanages, and we also went to the places where Maylin and Onlin were found.
Wow.
And I found that overwhelmingly emotional.
Wow. Let's stop here and talk a little bit about what we mean where they were found, okay? Because what happens in China is
so when they don't have safe harbor laws like here, so it's illegal to abandon your child. So mothers will leave their children in a public place because they want them to be found, and they usually have some note pinned to their clothes that says, "This is so and so, she's X months old, please take care of her." And whoever finds them calls the police or takes them to the police station, and the police then call the orphanage. The orphanage comes and gets them and brings them to the orphanage.
Right, right.
And I remember being in Dapu, where Onlin is from, and we stopped at the side of the road along the river. And I said, "Why are we here?" "This is where Onlin was found." The woman from the orphanage was there, and it was the same woman who had come to get her from the police station.
Wow. Wow.
10 years earlier.
Wow. I know, because I read somewhere that in actuality, there are groups of people in China who commit to going around the countryside and actually looking for these abandoned children to bring them to the police station or somewhere. Are you aware of that?
I'd not heard that.
Yeah, it's like, how in the U.S. we have these nonprofits that are out there, for a cause. Well,
Right.
apparently in China, there are those who believe that these kids need to be brought somewhere. They know they're abandoned. Let's at least, get them to some safe harbor, which, I guess is a good thing. So you now know where Anlin was found. Pretty emotional, huh?
Extremely.
Yeah.
Right.
How
I
did
mean-
that hit you, Sandra?
It is very emotional because we know that China has progressed so fast, so quickly in the last several decades in terms of building and construction. So when they pull off to the side of the road, it's a concrete curb with a lovely lawn. It wasn't that way when she was abandoned. So you have to imagine what it was like to be on the side of the road. For Malin, she was, if I remember, abandoned in a public restroom in a park. So at least the families that are leaving the children try and leave them in public places where they will be found very quickly. So they're not there overnight or for days.
Right.
And it's, I remember walking around the park with my family, and again, it was very emotional to
Yeah.
think about what it was like, for a little baby to be just left
Yeah.
out in the open.
How long, I guess it may be hard to answer. How long does it take for it to hit you that this is your child? I mean, did it
About a second and a half.
really? I know for those of us that give birth, the minute we see them,
No,
we're like, wow.
it's pretty quick.
Really? Wow, that's pretty amazing. Sandra was telling me, Victor, about how you went back to the orphanage and you saw that they were washing clothes by hand or something.
And diapers. Reusable diapers. They didn't have, they had one, not like we have one-time use diapers, they had cloth ones
Cloth
that they'd have
diapers.
to wash after every single use.
Wow,
And
that's a
then hang
lot
them
of
up to
washing.
dry. Yes.
Wow. So what did kind, generous dad think about doing?
Well, when we were at the orphanage in 2014, and it's southern China, and it's hot. It's subtropical, and there's no air conditioning. The kids sleep on the 3rd floor. There's no elevator, so the kids who are disabled have to be carried up and down stairs. And I remember our guide said, do you guys have a dryer? And the director said, we don't even have a washer.
Wow.
So I said, how much does a washer cost? And $250, $300. So we went downtown and we bought them a washer. And we bought 3 large bags of toys and books. And Anlin, if you want to describe.
The experience, yeah. We were giving out the toys to younger kids, and then for the older kids, I got to give out notebooks and pencils. And I remember I gave a notebook and a pencil to a girl. She was a little bit younger than I was, and she started clutching it to her chest, like she had never had one before. And I thought, oh my gosh, like.
So is that washer dryer named after your family? Only kidding. Anlin, we just talked about what the experience was like for your parents. When you went back to visit your orphanage, how did you feel?
I felt in many ways conflicted because on the one hand I saw these kids who were sitting in bare concrete floors in the metal cribs, and I felt sadness and disheartening.
Like that could have been you.
Because it was me for a
was
year, and they were eating congee, which is just rice and water. And I thought maybe that's why I'm so small, And
we all eat congee.
They didn't have, and I was 11 at the time. They didn't have the toys or the books that I had growing up, and it was shocking to me because I didn't really have any expectations going in, but it was a lot less than I guess.
Well, I want to quickly talk about you were bat mitzvahed.
Yes.
And as part of your bat mitzvah project, you did something to help the orphanage that you came from. What did you do, if you could quickly tell us?
When we got back home, we got in contact with Half the Sky Foundation, which is now called the One Sky.
One Sky.
One Sky, and they set up enrichment programs in orphanages in China that give kids the care they need, maybe some education they didn't have before. They have money set aside for surgery for the kids who can't walk or need help with their cleft palates.
And your project did what?
We raised about $30,000.
Wow.
Well, for 1 year of programming, and then we didn't want the program to stop after then. So we raised a total of $62,000 in order to get 2 years of programming at Dapu, so that we could give the kids the childhood that maybe they deserve that I feel like was taken from them.
Wow.
And Anlin probably won't tell you this, but I will. The government was so impressed with the work that she did with One Sky that they took over funding of the project indefinitely.
Oh.
So it's going to continue
That's
until there's no more need.
Super commendable. So now, I'm running short of time, so I want to quickly ask you, Anlin, there are a lot of stories about people who were adopted wanting to find their birth parents. Did that ever occur to you?
I think all the time, yeah.
All the time.
When I was growing up, the kids would ask me, "Oh, so you're adopted, so you don't know who your real parents are?"
And how do you answer them?
I say they are my real parents.
These are my real parents.
They raised me. I don't know anyone else, and I love them. And I would like to find them, yes. And I asked my sister the same thing, and she said yes, I would like to, if it was possible, but I don't think the records are that good for us to do that.
Well, I know your parents, and there'll come a time when they'll be right there to support you. So thank you so much for joining me, Gong Sloan family, Sandra, Anlin, Victor. That's our program for today. I want to thank the Gong Sloan family for joining me and sharing their stories about opening their home to 2 orphans from China who have already demonstrated that they are part of America's future movers and shakers. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Stay well, and we'll see you next time.